Please, dear all, let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us today on the occasion of the International Day of Clean Energy. My name is Tahmina Dawari, and I am the Executive Assistant at Women Ascension. I will be your moderator for today's webinar and panel discussion. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to introduce our organization. Women Assistant is a global platform dedicated to empowering women through education, leadership, development, policy dialogues, and community engagement. Our mission is to create inclusive opportunities that support personal growth, professional advancement, and sustainable impact across communities. Through fellowships, training programs, international dialogues, and advocacy initiatives, Women Ascension works to equip emerging leaders with the knowledge, skills, and network needed to contribute meaningfully to society and to our shared future. Now, today we are gathered for a focused webinar and panel discussion under the theme Clean Energy for All and for Our Planet. This session is designed to build clear and practical understanding of clean energy, climate responsibility, um, governance, and how these issues can connect people and the planet, especially in an inclusive and accessible way. Before we begin our speakers session, I would like to briefly share an update from Women Ascension. We have officially shared our new fellowship batch 1 2026. This fellowship has already begun and includes 10 active departments, which are climate action and sustainability, community outreach, heritage and culture, human resource, learning and understanding of AI and STEAM, peace and justice, publishing and media, research and policy development, skills development, and social media. Our fellows are currently engaging in structured learning, leadership development, and community-based impacts across these departments. We are very excited about this new batch and the work ahead. Now, let us move into today's learning session and hear from our speakers. It's like I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Daniel.
Thank you.
Mr. Daniel, thanks so much. Mr. Daniel works at the Instruction of Technology, Energy, and Sustainable, and is based in Denmark. His experience ranged from early digital system to contributing to modern green transition efforts, giving him a unique and practical perspective on climate responsibility. Today, he will speak on clean energy and climate responsibility, explaining how fossil fuels contribute to climate change and how a renewable energy source can support both people and the planet. Now, Mr. Daniel, welcome to the floor. Now, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tahmina, and thank you for inviting me. I will try to cover the subject, even though it is a huge subject, so I think this will just be a high-level introduction. So I think when we talk about climate change, what I feel is important is to remember that our Earth has always been changing. So for the last 400 million years, we have had more CO2 and less CO2. We've had much warmer climate, and we've also had cooler climate. And actually, when you look at this graph, then you see that we are in a relatively cold period of the Earth. What you also should remember is when the dinosaurs went extinct, they had hundreds of millions of years to develop, yet they never really developed intelligence as we do. So in a way, maybe the climate also had a role, that maybe this atmosphere as we have it right now is very good for our human race. When you look at the last 1 million years, you see that the atmosphere has fluctuated, and yet only about 14,000 years ago did we develop into a farming society. And that may also actually have been because there was too little CO2. If there's too little CO2, then the plants, they grow slower. That means you need to have a much larger area to collect your food from, which makes it unfeasible to actually do farming. So this is the CO2 level over the last 800,000 years. And what you see is there is natural fluctuations. And these fluctuations are about 100 parts per million. And when we started our industrialization about 150 years ago, we were actually in a high level of the CO2. And now, of course, we have, yeah, doubled from the lowest levels in the last 800,000 years and 150% higher than the top. And this fluctuation, the natural fluctuation, is basically because our Earth is wobbling around like a spinning top through the space, and sometimes it's closer to the sun, and sometimes less, and sometimes it faces more water to the sun, and sometimes less. And this is how these fluctuations happen. When we're looking at the Keeling curve, which is this curve of the increasing CO2, then you see most people know this. You have the summer-winter fluctuation because there's more forest on the northern hemisphere. And then during winter, we have a higher, or the CO2 is at its low, and then it increases much faster. This is this sinus swing. What people are less aware of is that the oxygen level in our atmosphere is also actually decreasing. So the relative more CO2, less oxygen, that's also not so optimal for us as a humankind. Understanding why fossil fuels have such a big impact is, when you looked at the graphs I showed you just before, actually our Earth was in balance. We produced as much CO2 as the natural systems were taking in. But now what we are doing is we are taking from the Earth, taking the fossil fuels, coal and oil and gas, and burning this, and then it ends up in our atmosphere. And because CO2 absorbs heat, it will heat up the Earth. And that is, of course, what most people are talking about. Then a large portion of this CO2 actually goes into the water. And our natural photosynthesis, both in the water and in the oceans, then absorbs the CO2 and brings this into permanent storage in sediments. What you must realize is, however, that when a tree grows and absorbs maybe 40 kilos of CO2 every year, then we use this tree to maybe build a house. But then after the 100 years that the house was built, probably we will burn the tree, and then it ends up back into the atmosphere. That means we need to really stop using fossil fuels, because otherwise the nature cannot absorb all of this. Only about 2% of the nature absorption of this natural breathing, or the CO2 cycle, ends up in a sediment. So when we look at this graph, you see these, I hope you can see it, because for me there's something in on the right side in front, but you see the predictions of where our CO2 is going, and it's going back into the area which we last have seen when the dinosaurs were roaming the Earth. Now, these predictions, they are based on something called social pathways, societal pathways, socioeconomical pathways 1 to 5, and it depends on how are we going to act. Underneath you have physics, which is quite certain. Then you have these economical pathways. They predict the CO2 levels. On top of that, you have the climate models. And even on top of that, then you have the temperature. So what I find interesting is that we talk about the temperature, the part with the highest uncertainty when the CO2 is actually much more concrete and also does have an impact on us and on plant and natural life. These pathways are the different ones. SSP1 is taking the green road, a pathway focused on well-being, sustainability, a shift towards clean energy with low challenges for climate change mitigation and adaptation. And it doesn't really seem like we are so much taking that at the moment, unfortunately. And the prediction for the CO2 looks like this. The second, SSP2, is the middle road, where we are moderately working together and really trying to wane the humanity off of the fossil fuels. And a lot of countries are following this path. And it would be good if more could agree on following this. If we see the development of following SSP2, which is the middle road, then we will hit 1,000 parts per million in the year 2300. That is like in a badly ventilated room, a classroom or a meeting room. SSP3 is the regional rivalry. That is unfortunately what it seems we see right now with the superpowers wanting to control everything. And if we look at the curve there for the CO2, it doesn't look very good. SSP4, inequality, a road divided. So this is also what we can argue for that we are seeing, where we have poverty in some countries. We have the rich countries who can actually do something about the situation and mitigate. And this actually has a lower prediction than the previous one. And of course, the fossil fuel development, this is business as usual. We just rapidly develop the economy, and it feels like we are preparing for a train wreck running into a concrete wall. Then we see the highest curve, where we will be back in the era of dinosaurs. Now, you should remember dinosaurs had millions of years to adapt to this climate. And we are looking at this now in the course of a couple of 100 years. So millions of years, that's maybe 40,000 generations of humans, where one generation is 25 years. So, and now we are looking at doing the same in maybe 10 generations. We cannot evolve this fast. It will have consequences. Now, what do we need to do? We really need to remove the fossil fuels and shift away from coal and oil and natural gas. And we are already bringing the clean technologies, the cost down, and we are deploying fast. And I think a lot of the solutions are actually there. We also, in residential, we can actually change from burning fossil fuels and into electrifying everything. The best thing is to electrify and then to store the electricity when we don't need it. So we have too many wind turbines, we have too many solar panels. We store this in pumped hydro or in batteries to use electricity because we need a constant supply of electricity. And then you have the hard to abate sectors, which are shipping, flying, cement, and steel production. There we can use green fuels and to remove entirely the use of fossil fuels so that nature can come back into an equilibrium and start removing the CO2, which there is too much of in the atmosphere right now. And that is where I will conclude. I hope I didn't go too much over my time.
Not at all. Not at all, Mr. Daniel. Thank you so much. It was like, Mr. Daniel,
Yes.
thank you so much for your clear, engaging presentation. We appreciate the way you explain it, climate responsibility and renewable energy is a simple and practical manner. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we are moving on with the second speaker. I'm pleased to introduce our second speaker, Miss Banjuka. I hope I'm not spelling wrong. So Ms. Panjuka is a Pan-African policy development and governance expert with over sorry, 1 minute. Okay. Expert with over 2 decades of experience working with governments, institutions, and international platforms. Her work focuses on clean energy, transition, and matter of governance, public trust, and inclusive access. Today, she will speak on practical transition governance and SDG 7, helping us understand clean energy not only as a technical issue but as a responsibility connected to people, institution, and long-term planetary stewardship. Ms. Vanjuka, thank you so much for joining in. The floor is all yours.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Maheen. I'm not sure they're in the call yet. And warm greetings to my fellow speaker, Daniel Lux. It was a pleasure to listen to you. I wish we had more time for you to unpack what you were sharing today. Distinguished participants, colleagues, joining us from across the regions and time zones, warm greetings from the cradle of humanity. I'm currently based in Nairobi, Kenya. It is an honor, really, to be part of this conversation convened by Women Ascension in recognition of this very important day, International Day of Clean Energy. Today, I'll be sharing from a slightly different perspective, from a governance and policy angle, framing clean energy transitions not only as a technical or financial endeavor, but as questions of institutional design, public trust, and most importantly, long-term stewardship. Because ultimately, communities do not experience energy as technology. They experience it as access, fairness, reliability, and it is governance that determines whether energy systems endure. Thank you again for the opportunity. I'll dive straight in. So from my perspective and from my experience having long and not so easy conversations at different policy levels, when we speak of energy, clean energy especially, we often begin with technology, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Solar panels, wind, grids, and finance. But communities, those that we serve, do not experience energy as technology. They experience it as access, as I earlier mentioned, fairness, reliability, and most importantly, trust. This is why clean energy is not only a technical transition, it's a governance question as well. Whether energy systems succeed or fail depends less on what we install and more on whether people trust the institutions behind those systems. Energy ultimately, especially clean energy, comes across as a critical factor where we must ask ourselves, how do those that we are seeking to transition experiencing this transition? Why does this truly matter? Energy shapes everyday life in very practical ways. Clinics need reliable power to provide care. Schools need light and connectivity for learning. Small businesses depend on stable access to grow livelihoods. Across Africa, especially, more than 600 million people still lack access to electricity, including where I'm currently based. For them, clean energy is not about climate debates. It's actually quite foreign when you have this conversation on the ground. It's about dignity, opportunity, and daily survival. So when we speak about energy transitions, we must always begin with people. Health, again, need reliable power. Education needs light and connectivity. Livelihoods depend on stable access. This is the missing link. Why doesn't clean energy last? Why is it a conversation that seems to constantly hit a brick wall? Many clean energy projects fail not because the technology was wrong, but because the system around it was weak. Projects fail when communities are not meaningfully engaged. They fail when institutions are fragmented or unclear. They fail when trust is absent. We have seen projects that have been very well funded, technically sound, celebrated at launch, and even received global awards, but abandoned very few years later. Technology can be installed quickly. Trust must be built carefully. And without trust, systems don't endure. And that's why I've shared this particular image to begin to see what the cycle looks like, from embodying core values of trustworthiness to building relationships and engagement and sharing decision-making and championing autonomy and addressing barriers to trust. I had the privilege of leading the business agenda of energy just transition, energy democracy, environment, and climate sustainability at the recently concluded G20 Social Summit. And this was one of the biggest questions. So you are asking us, you're saying that we need to transition. What will we do in the interim? What happens to those of us who are out of work at 35 because we are told we are too old to go into the mines? How will our children go to school? How will we secure the health? Again, it's about trust. So where is the bridge? This is where clean energy meets strong institutions. Access to energy depends on institutions that are predictable and fair. Trust grows when decisions are transparent and consistent. Strong governance turns projects into public goods, not a one-time intervention. This is why the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 7 about affordable and clean energy cannot be separated from the SDG 16 about peace, justice, and strong institutions. Clean energies will succeed and only succeeds when institutions are legitimate, accountable, and trusted by the people that they serve. So I want to give us just a quick look at how this architecture would look like. Governance does sound like a complex word, but it can be understood very simply. Governance only answers three basic questions. Who decides? Who has the authority to make the decision about the energy systems? The second question, who benefits? Are benefits shared fairly, or do they concentrate on a few hands? Thirdly, who is accountable over time? When something fails, who is going to be responsible and who fixes it? When these questions are clear, systems are trusted. When they're unclear, even good projects will struggle. If you look at the presentation of this particular image I've shared with you like the 8 principal areas that really we must pay attention even as we put projects together. 1, I've talked about the institutional legitimacy, policy coherence and continuity. Is there stability across political cycles? And this more is quite important, especially when you come to the global south. Public trust and social license. Is there acceptance beyond the legal approval? Equity and inclusive access. Who pays? Who benefits? And most importantly, who is included? Accountability and oversight. Where does the clear responsibility sit? And where is the transparency? And who does the correction? Community participation and consent. We often talk about fair and prior-informed consent. Has there been meaningful engagement versus consultation theater? That may sound a bit harsh, but it's a reality. Value chain stewardship, resource and supply. Whether we are speaking about critical minerals, who owns the land, how we're protecting the environment, and most importantly, are we beneficiating where all these resources are currently being resourced from? Ultimately, should we do all of this, build legitimacy and trust, resilience and long-term stewardship begins to be a guarantee. Systems will endure beyond the shocks and generations. Last but not least, so what must truly endure? If we step back, 3 elements determine whether clean energy can endure. Legitimacy. Do people believe the system serves the public interest? Trust. Do the communities we are called to serve accept and support it? And thirdly, continuity. Will the system survive political, financial, and climate shocks? Our previous presenter, Daniel Lux, has given us a good chronology that most importantly should wake us up and ask ourselves, if that's how long it's taken us to get where we are, what do the next 20, 30, 50 years, maybe we will not be here, look like for the generations to come? When governance is strong, technology automatically follows. When governance is weak, even the best technology fails. Clean energy becomes transformational, well, not when it is installed, but when people trust the systems behind it. In conclusion, clean energy becomes transformational, not when installed, but when people trust the systems that are behind it. It succeeds as a shared responsibility, and its success depends on how we govern it today and across generations. It's important for all of us to remember that the land will always remember, the air will always testify, and only then can the people rise, not from broken legacies, but from forged, resilient futures. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wanjikú, for your insightful and thoughtful presentation. We truly appreciate your perspective on governance, trust, and inclusive energy transition. Thank you so much, Ms. Okay, now please let me know if you can hear me because my internet is a bit bad.
We can hear you well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wanjikú. Now, I think I would like to add a few key points about today's topic. Clean energy is more than just a technical solution. It is a pathway to a sustainable future. By investing in renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydro, we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, lower greenhouse gas emissions, and protect our planet for future generation. At the same time, access to clean energy is a matter of equity and inclusion. Communities that are understanding or lack reliable electricity often face challenges in education and healthcare and economic development. Ensuring that clean energy solutions reach these communities help, helps create opportunities, promote equality, and strengthen social and economic resilience. Today's discussion reminds us that clean energy is interacted with governance, policy, technology, and human development. It is a shared responsibility that requires collaboration across governments, institutions, business, and cities alike. Now, I would like to say that now we move to the question and answer part. Participants are likely to request to share their question through the question box, and we will take a few questions as time allows. So I think they have already dropped many questions in the chat box, so we can read them one by one. Let me go to the first question. Okay. Okay, I think someone from Mr. Daniel have asked a question, said that clean energy is a means to protect our planet. Can you explain how it helps reduce pollution and fight climate changes?
Yes. So the fundamental difference between clean and renewable energy and the fossil fuels we are burning is that when you install a solar panel, it of course has an impact on our Earth. It uses resources, and that basically starts with a negative climate impact. However, once you have set this device up, for example, a solar panel, then it will keep on producing electricity for a long time, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe even 25 years. And during this time, when you compare it to fossil fuels, then it becomes a negative impact. So it helps really produce the electricity which we need and which we want, while it avoids burning the fossil fuels. The fossil fuels, you only burn them once, and when you burn them, you actually only use probably 30, maybe 40% of the energy stored in the fossil fuels. For example, be it you make electricity from them, 60% go to heat, which often is not used. Or when you drive a car with an internal combustion engine, then most of the energy actually also goes to heat, which is not used. When you drive an electric car, you are close to 95% of the electricity, which goes to the purpose to actually bringing you forward. And that is why the renewable energy is the way to go. It has a much lower impact on the atmosphere, on the air that we breathe, and it doesn't consume during its lifetime. So I hope that answers my question or your question.
It does, Mr. Donald. Thank you so much. There's a lot of questions, so we may bother you many times to please. So now I would like to ask another question. It's from YouTube, from Miss Vanjika. They said that people do not have easy access to clean energy. What do you see as the main challenges to making it available to everyone?
Is this to me or to Miss Wanjikú?
Oh, I don't know. Like, if you want to answer, you can answer. No worries.
I think we probably both have meaningful answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, one thing is the availability, so it's about the price. It's about, is there the infrastructure around it to make something meaningful of it? Only energy is probably not enough. You need a system around it. The solar panels don't produce electricity during night, so you need to shift some energy. Here in Denmark, there's right now a snowstorm coming, so that shows we have more energy in summer and less in winter. Then you need to shift it from one season to another season. And of course, the fossil fuels solution has had 150 years to make things cheap and available everywhere. And the same has to happen for renewable solutions. So I mean, yes, infrastructure should be the municipality, the region, or the national government looking at that. But you can also start small, having your own solar panel, having a small battery so you have light during night. I mean, but we need to slowly change.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Daniel. Because not only the technology, like, it cannot help. We need to do something from our side too. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Ms. Vanjuka, can you hear me?
Indeed, yes, I can.
Yes.
So,
Ms. Vanjuka, someone from our YouTube, a participant is like asking a question, said that, could you please share a story or example where a clean energy project really improved people's life?
all right, thank you very much. So I will start off with the earlier question and then I'll hobble on to this one. So what is our challenges? First, ironically, which I call the cruel irony, is that the global South countries are the ones who contribute least to the climate change but suffer the worst effects. And yet you find a lot of the resources that are required to be able to build this architecture for it to be effective, again, is sourced from a lot of these countries. So that is the what I see as the primary and principal challenging effect. And then Mr. Daniel Lux has also spoken about in terms of cost. And from where I sit, the upfront cost is actually a significant barrier where we're talking about solar panels, but for them to become cheaper, the initial investment remains prohibitive for too many people. Then as the other aspect would be technology and knowledge transfer. And this swings both ways. First, from the indigenous knowledge from the different communities, there's the way they harvested energy back in the day before technology evolved to where it is. So we seem to have lost that. That's first and foremost. And then secondly, even as this technology evolves, there's very little knowledge transfer. And then comes the big one, which is the geographical dynamics between the words which I really don't like, the global north and the global south. And these dynamics impact the same. So when I hobble onto the question that has been asked, whether I can be able to share a clean energy project that has impacted the community greatly, I can name a dime a dozen. However, they're not at scale. And this is where the challenges come in. What do I mean it's not at scale? For example, I come from central Kenya, and my mother comes from the Maasai people. And we have set up projects within the Maasai community where we have dug boreholes and they're solar powered. And this brings a big change to the community there. Schools, whether it is from early childhood education to secondary, which would be like now your lower grades and your upper grades, depending on where you're coming from, and onto clinics, especially for emergencies when you have to do late night deliveries or the emergencies. All these are very critical. However, we haven't done them at scale. When you look across Africa, those who have done them at scale and acknowledged tend to be privately owned. They're not benefiting the communities directly. So I cannot say authoritatively to say that at scale that we have been able to succeed. But when we come down to this, it all comes down to financing mechanisms, geopolitical dynamics, and unfortunately, resource extraction patterns. So that would be my response. I'm not too sure whether Mr. Daniel would have a different response to this. And it's good we are coming from different geographies. Mr. Daniel, over to you if you have a response.
I think that was a very inspiring and good answer, I would say. So
So we will ask another question from Mr. Daniel. What do you think, if you want?
Yes, sure.
Okay, I think this question is for Mr. Daniel. The next question is for women. I think we can ask it for Ms. Wanjikú. Now this one, can you please, Mr. Daniel, answer that? How can clean energy make life better for communities?
I think what is important to realize is that when you burn fossil fuels, then you generate microparticles and different particles in the air. And for example, NOx, and these particles, they actually cause cancer, and they can give you allergies, and they can make you sick. And I'm sure, I mean, depending on where you look, in India, in Pakistan, in some, even in Europe, in some areas, in Serbia, you have extremely dirty air, And this dirty air is not good for also when your children are growing up, and the development of children, they have an impact on the health. So you get a shorter life. And I think that's where renewable energy really has its strength, the quality of air. So that is not directly related to climate change, but it is related to the well-being of people. And I think I see that as the biggest impact. And it's more silent. I mean, having a motorcycle with an electric engine is more silent. There's also noise pollution. Um, so I think those are the immediate impacts. The more we can transition, the cleaner the air will be, and it will be good for people. It will also be good for the crops and the food we eat, because these particles, which are poisonous, they end up in the crops that you then eat, and they accumulate in our bodies. So I think there should be a lot of good arguments for having clean energy. I hope that answers the question. Maybe you want to add something, Miss Wanjikú?
Oh, well, I mean, you've covered it pretty well. I think my only addition is, apart from the economic opportunities that clean energy would bring, and the education transformation, of course, healthcare access, I'd like to speak about leapfrogging development. Just the same way, very simple, what we call here button phones, allowed people and communities from the deep rural areas, very unreached, to be able to communicate and bypass the landlines. For those of us who grew up in the days of the landline, I think that microgrids and communities can bypass, some of this really huge pitfalls, should we choose to actually look at it in this way, because this then accelerates the development timelines by decades. So that would be my additional example. And you did talk about Asia. Bangladesh solar home systems have brought electricity to millions in rural households by solar powering really the drip irrigation that has transformed farming as well in parts of India. So really, and even here in East Africa, there are some spaces where we have mini grids that are powering entire villages. So there is great opportunities. We just need to be acutely aware about the things that can trip that development. Thank you, and back to you.
You inspired one more answer from my side. I think it is the difference between when you buy fossil fuels, you are dependent and you are in the hands of external forces who are delivering you these fossil fuels, and you need them all the time. When you buy the renewable, you have bought them once, but then for 20, 25 years, you are independent of these external forces. That means you have your own destiny more in your own hand. Of course, there is this initial investment, which is huge and prohibitive in some cases, but hopefully this will decrease further in the future.
Indeed. Just to add on to that, I think even as what I know is, once we intentionally take down this route, community ownership and autonomy, as part of what you've spoken about, becomes pivotal and central. All right, I think we may have taken over the moderator. Back to you. I think there are a few questions.
No, thank you so much, Ms. Bajuka and Mr. Daniel. When you both talk, we enjoy. Yes, really. So, Ms. Bajuka, someone from YouTube have asked it that women are often left out of energy discussions. How can we encourage more women to take leadership in clean energy projects?
Mhm. Thank you very much. I don't know how much time we have. That's a pet project, pet conversation for me. And the reason why this is very critical for me is because it is, well, back home, we say when you empower a woman, you empower a village. Um, because culturally, how we have been socialized and a lot of times how we're structured is that really the man is the one who steps out to go and search and hunt and bring food to the table. And women have traditionally been left to tend the homes. However, the dynamics have now changed. We have more and more female-led households. We have, in terms of ratio of men to women are more. We have a lot more women who are ambitious, and this is a good thing. So the conversation I usually have is, let us move away from gender, men or women. Let's have everybody at the table. Let us organize ourselves, if we're talking about the women, about the youth, the people living with disabilities, and people who are in the marginalized groups. Let's have everybody at the table, because that is how solutions are found. So advocating for women to take on leadership roles and being able to support them to actually do the work, irrespective of the region or the religious and political affiliation of the region they find themselves with. This is going to be critical to our success to this clean energy agenda, because ultimately it comes back down to one thing. The matters that Mr. Lux has been able to flag light in his presentation, they don't know what gender somebody is. They don't know which part of the world you're from. It be affected across different degrees, yes, but everybody is experiencing the same thing. So the question is, we are stronger together. Why don't you have everybody at the table? And I do believe that everybody has something to contribute. And from where I sit, the more women are involved, the wider and the greater solutions are provided for. Lastly, allow me to speak to something that's not really usually discussed, indigenous knowledge systems and the spaces where we find our community leaders. Back here in Africa, we have kings and queens, we have kingdoms, we have royal houses. You have the people who knew how to navigate weather and the land and the waters. We need to bring everybody to the table, because with every voice, we will find a solution. That would be my sincere and very honest response. Back to you, Tahmina.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vanjuka, for answering this question. It was really a powerful question, and you did a really good job with the answering. It was really good understanding. Okay, so because the time is almost done, we have one more last question. We have lots of questions, but we cannot take them all as the time is up. So I would like to ask this question from Mr. Daniel. So they said that how can let me just read it. I think I lost it. Okay. How can regional rivalry negatively impact global efforts to address climate changes? Mr. Daniel?
Yes. I think the reason for this is that when everybody thinks of himself, then you do what is best for yourself. So when you look at the way right now one of the global superpowers is acting, saying as if there is no climate change, they only have their own interest, they want to sell their fossil fuels, then this is quite a drastic example of how this hurts climate change. But there is also, when you have a war, then the these more distant problems, they become more abstract. So fighting a war will use a lot of fossil fuels. You need a lot of energy to propel your tanks and your airplanes and whatnot. And by having a war, you of course destroy infrastructure which is needed, which you will need to rebuild. So these rivalries, this is a race we are, like Miss Wanjikú, she said, we are all in this together. We need to find solutions together, and certain things are best done in one place and other things are best done in another place. And if we all focused on working together to solve this problem, then we would be much further than we are now. These selfish goals that a rivalry entails means that we are not working together. We are doubling the infrastructure we need instead of working together. I mean, maybe one has pumped hydro, so you have the water, and the other one has solar panels. If they work together, you can use one for storage, and then when there is none, you can just optimize much more when you work together. But unfortunately, this looks difficult in today's global geopolitical system.
Exactly, Mr. Daniel. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for answering this question.
You're
So, as
welcome.
we come to the end of today's session, I would like to sincerely thank our speaker, Mr. Daniel, and Ms. Vanjuka, our leadership, and all participants for being part of this meaningful discussion. Today's conversation reminds us that clean energy is not only about innovation, but also about responsibility, inclusion, and care for our planet and future generations. At Women Ascension, we remain commitment to fostering dialogue, supporting leadership, and creating pathway for positive and sustainable changes. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming Women Ascension program and sessions. Thank you so much, dear all. Have a wonderful day. And thank you so much to Mr. Daniel and Ms. Vanjuka. It was a really nice to meet you and having you all back in 2026. I'm so happy that we are starting over again. And I hope I can see you in other sessions too with us as a speaker.
Sure. And thank you for having us.
Thank,
Thank you
thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for
Thank
now.
you so much, Gerald. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.